Hi everyone, Ryan here from Fight Game Analysis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming fight between Anthony Joshua and Oleksandr Usyk. Before we jump into that, if you've been enjoying the content, please go ahead and click on the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate your support. Alright, so the rematch was announced July 23rd. We're getting Joshua versus Usyk. Now, before I jump into anything else, before I give my first thoughts on this, allow me to say one thing. Anthony Joshua is something else, man. Really, truly he is. But I think we have to just say that out loud. Okay? Here we have a man who went to the Olympic Games, won a gold medal, turns pro. Bright spotlight on you, right? That's why I say that. So he's got this bright spotlight on him. His whole career, he goes out there, he's incredibly successful. Only loses 2 times. Both those times were in recent memory. One time gets smoked by Ruiz. Next time goes out there and loses to Usyk. Both times now he has demanded an immediate rematch. Both times he doesn't want to try to sidestep it. Doesn't want to try to walk away from it. Doesn't want to offer excuses in the sense of, I'm going to go do something else. I don't really need that anymore. That was a fluke and I'm going to try to avoid it. I'm going to get some tune-up fights in the meantime. Maybe it's a bad decision. Maybe it's a good decision. But one thing that we have to absolutely say is he's not shying away from it for one step. Not for 1 second. Wants to immediately go in there and make it happen. Love that. Love that about a fighter. Right? Goes in there. Obviously, we know what he did to Andy Ruiz in that rematch. Was able to reclaim the belts. Now he steps in there against Usyk on this rematch. Now, look. Usyk's a different fighter than Andy Ruiz. All right? Not as if that wasn't obvious right out the gate. Let me just go ahead and say that. So this one's going to be a little bit different, right? Styles make fights. Now, the first thing that I think about when I think about this rematch is I got to think about the first time that they fought. And in a lot of ways, that was a boxing lesson. In a lot of ways, that was a boxing lesson for Anthony Joshua. Man, Usyk came out there and he did what he wanted, particularly early in that fight. I went back, I watched some of it right before I made this video after the announcement was made that we were going to get the rematch. And it was just so impressive what he did. He goes in there as the smaller man, goes in there as the lighter man, and he makes things happen. Now, when you're watching a fight, it's super easy to see the punches that are landed. Right? You see the punch that's landed, you hear the crowd ooh and ah, you hear the commentators talk about it. It's like everybody gets that, everybody sees it. Not difficult. But what is difficult is what happens behind the scenes, right? What happens to make that punch land. Particularly when you're the smaller man, you got to put yourself in position. If I'm 5 feet away from a guy, I can't land a punch. If I'm too close to a guy, I'm smothering my work. In between that distance is where I'm going to be able to get my shots off. But surprise, surprise, I got to worry about him getting his off too. So that's where the art of hitting and not getting hit comes in. Oleksandr Usyk was awesome at that. He put himself in beautiful positions to be able to get off all of his shots. He's fighting out of the southpaw stance. Loves that left hand. He was able to get it off all night. And it was all because of the footwork. Dude, that footwork was absolutely beautiful. He understands footwork. He understands distance. He understands angles and the center line. So through a combination of his footwork and his head movement, he was able to get himself off the center line constantly. He was able to get his right foot, which is his lead foot, outside of Joshua's lead foot, his left foot. And once he's able to get that foot to the outside, it just gives him a perfect lane, a perfect alley to land that straight left hand. And he was doing it all night. You see that Joshua didn't have an answer for that for a long time. Right? It's because Joshua was more of a stationary fighter, a little bit more heavy on his feet. Needs his guy to be in front of him to land his shot. So Usyk was just constantly using the lateral movement, not giving Anthony Joshua a stationary target so that he couldn't set his shots up and land them. And then he's constantly getting his foot to the outside when he wants to get his offense off and then peeling out on angles. It was great work. Now look, Joshua actually made an adjustment in those middle rounds, started to be able to get off some of his shots, and it was because he wasn't throwing everything with power, wasn't telegraphing his shots as much, just kind of throwing things out there a little bit lighter, a little bit quicker. Still a little bit heavy on his feet relative to Usyk, still able to get turned. Still not able to do great things, but it was enough to make an adjustment and win the rounds. But Usyk came back and he won the majority of that fight. Even, stung him hard early on in the third, looked like he made him stumble a little bit, stung him late in the fight in the 12th round, had him up against the ropes. So even though Joshua was able to win some rounds, even though he was able to make that adjustment mid-fight, overall it was a beating. Overall, Usyk went in there and gave him that boxing lesson. But I will say this. He didn't lose all 12 rounds. Joshua did not go out there and lose 12 rounds or lose 11 rounds or something like that. He was able to go in there and make an adjustment. That proves that he was thinking on the fly, that his corner was thinking on the fly, and that he was willing to listen to advice. It proves that he's able to go in there and see success against this man. That's huge because when you're heading into a rematch, the first thing you have to think is, what did I do wrong? What change am I going to make from earning that first loss to now I'm going to be able to get a win in the rematch? Because if you go in there and you do the same thing, common sense is going to tell you you're going to end up with the same result, which is another loss on your record. I'm sure that's not what Joshua's intention is. I'm quite sure he plans on going in here and getting the win. Right? Now, it's easy to think that as the bigger, stronger man, he's going to go in and he's going to try to emphasize his power. Right? But that's probably what he thought the first time. So that adjustment that he made mid-fight, when he was able to go in there, use less power, not telegraph the shots, be a little bit lighter with his punches and kind of just put him out there, right? That concept of you have to be able to make contact with a man before you can land a hard punch on a man. He was following that, and that's where he started to see success. If he takes that into this second training camp, builds on it a little bit, who knows? Maybe he'll be able to see a little bit more, right? And then look, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Usyk's situation. The reason this fight didn't happen earlier is because he was over in Ukraine. He was over there with the army. Now, I don't know exactly what he was doing. He was not training for boxing, though. That's what I do know. That's why this fight did not initially happen. So now he leaves. He comes back over. He's going to start training. I've heard reports that he's lost like 20 pounds. You know, he's not naturally a heavyweight. He obviously started out later. He was probably having to keep that weight on. Maybe his body hadn't normally accepted it. So now what? Now we got to think he's going into a training camp and he's got to physically do stuff to his body, put this weight on while also working on his skill set, tightening everything up and making it sharp. I don't know. It'll be interesting. I'll tell you what, though, man. Usyk is something else. He is a special fighter. The fact that he moved up and he was able to do what he did to a man of Anthony Joshua's skill level, highly impressive. Highly impressive. So I'm looking forward to, as this fight gets a little bit closer, looking forward to seeing what both men are doing, kind of getting some film behind their training camps, really, truly breaking down that first fight again relative to some of their other fights and seeing what goes on. But I'm leaning towards Usyk on this one as it starts out. But man, I'm looking forward to it, and I think it's got the potential to be a great fight. So let me know what you guys think. What'd you think of the first one, and how do you think this second one's going to go?